Hokie Hangover podcast. Boys, one of these days we'll start on time. Right?
Today was not that day.
It's not going to be tonight.
Yeah,
Not
it's
going to
definitely
be
not going to be
tonight.
tonight. We haven't recorded in a bit. We wanted to record this earlier in the week. So a few things came up, including some work stuff for me. Had a crazy night Monday, which was our plan B. So I think this is this plan C or is this plan D for the week?
This is plan D. I think plan A was Sunday. That didn't work. Plan B was Monday. You got tied up with work. Plan C, I think, officially was maybe Tuesday night, but then I was tied up with work. We're on plan D now.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing I don't take these plans too seriously when they're made, or else I would have not done anything all week. But I just kept rocking and rolling. I would have left whenever.
Well, Andrew, that's been how I've been the entire week. But,
it's all good though. It's all good. It's psychotic in general to have a Virginia Tech football podcast. To do one in April is, it'd be a red flag in the eyes of many, but here we are. We're here to serve the people. We're here for our mantra: peace, love, and understanding. The presumption of grace for all. No insults will be flung. It's just going to be all good. I'm curious to see how this one goes. But Ricky's journey across the Commonwealth on a chilly April day will not be in vain, because we are here to talk about it, for better or worse.
Yeah, I was about to say, no one can question the dedication of this show, considering my wife and I trekked from Virginia Beach starting at around 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, drove all the way to Blacksburg. Boys, when I tell you it was cold, it was cold. We had to we bought a Easter blanket for Lisa to try and keep warm with. We seriously considered leaving at halftime, given how cold and windy it was. We ended up staying for the whole game. Was that a good idea? Probably not, but we did it anyway. So first things first, going back to the cold weather, I don't know if you guys saw any video or photos of the crowd at this game. This was easily the worst attended spring game that I've ever been a part of. I'm going to try and give them the benefit of the doubt, considering it was 40 degrees and windy. But this was not a good turnout.
Here's what I'll say. Obviously, if you look at last year's spring game versus this year's spring game, a major difference. And obviously a major difference in the tone and tenor of this podcast and the podcasts that come throughout the offseason when it comes to the state of the program and what expectations look like for this team. But either way, from what I heard, spring game attendance was down across the country. You could blame that on a variety of factors. I'm sure we'll get to it here by the time this podcast goes on. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's not a huge bright spot when we talk about hype for Virginia Tech.
I saw a photo today, actually, of Alabama's spring game, which I guess they had changed the format of. Usually it's like a scrimmage type deal like everybody else, but they had changed it to essentially like a practice format. And they call it A-Day. Well, A-Day had gone from the entire lower bowl being filled, right, to something a little bit better than what Lane Stadium looked like on Saturday, but not too much better considering what A-Day looked like a year ago. So, yeah, I mean, spring game attendance is down everywhere. The coaches aren't helping because everybody's paranoid about the portal and tampering and everything else. But I think some of it, too, is the fact that Virginia Tech is coming off of a really disappointing season. I think some of it, too, is Brent Pry, the king of media access, kind of bring his cards a little closer to the vest because all of a sudden he was getting criticized because the team wasn't playing very well.
Well, there's another
And I
reason
think,
too, Mike, which I think is worth us discussing here. So, while I was in Blacksburg,
Mhm.
I heard that the word on the street is that Brent Pry is at least marginally concerned about his opponent in Week 1 being Shane Beamer. And folks, I don't know if you may have forgotten this, but Shane grew up in Blacksburg
Mhm.
and played in Blacksburg quite a bit and coached in Blacksburg quite a bit. Um, and I guess there's a legitimate concern, guys, that there are folks within Blacksburg and the surrounding area that are potentially feeding information to the South Carolina football program,
I
and
love it.
that may or may not have led to a tighter than normal media availability schedule for the spring than we're otherwise used to.
That is fun. I like that theory. That's something I actually had not thought about, and I would not discount. That makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, it is what it is. Just they're probably going to lose the game anyway. But let's be
Wait,
honest.
are we saying? Are we
Are,
saying?
are we
Andrew-
worried that Andy Bitter is calling Shane Beamer and saying, "Hey,
I don't think that's
they got the middle linebacker lining up as the fullback in the eye here. You should prepare for that if it comes down to 4th and 1." Like, what are we fucking talking about?
Wait. Hold on a second. Wait. Do you mean to tell us that we're worried that somebody is going to leak something to the WikiLeaks guy? Is that what we're saying? Is that what we're doing here?
Shocking,
I like
right?
that.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely
like
shocking.
it takes one to know one in a weird way there.
Yeah. Oh, that's
It's like,
good.
who would ever think to use members of the media to leverage for game plans? Like,
Who would ever do that? Who would ever do such a thing?
So
Oh.
that's what I'm hearing. I don't know how true that is, but I am going to throw that out there. And folks, you can do with that what you will. As far as the actual game goes, I had a couple things that I wanted us to chop up tonight. And one of those was directly impacted in the time that it took us to originally record this show, and then the amount of times it was postponed, the situation changed. So let's talk about quarterback. We knew Kyron Jones wasn't going to play in the spring game. We knew he was out. He missed probably the last, I don't know, third maybe of spring practices, something like that. We got word Saturday, I think it was late morning, early afternoon, that Pop Watson was not going to play in spring game with a, quote, soft tissue injury. Not sure exactly what that is. So Virginia Tech had 3 quarterbacks dressed for this game: Davi Belfort, Keldon Ryan, and AJ Brand. A lot of folks, including myself, saw 18 on the sideline during warmups and said, "Wait a minute, I thought Pop Watson wasn't playing," and then remembered that Pop Watson changed his number this offseason, and that was AJ Brand. So we saw three quarterbacks in this game, none of whom are going to be in the 2 deep for Virginia Tech entering the 2025 season. Guys, the quarterback play was less than inspiring.
What you'd expect out of third stringers who have never taken college snaps?
Yeah. Now, I guess my my worry at the time was, like, these guys aren't even flashing at all. I mean, like, you would hope that these guys might be able to put a little bit out there that would give you kind of an insight as to what their potential is, what their ceiling is, and flash some arm talent. I didn't see any of that on Saturday. The best arm talent we saw on Saturday was Aiden Green throwing a touchdown pass.
I heard
and then, of
Ricky,
course,
Ricky,
before we continue chopping this up, Davi
Yep.
Belfort announced a couple days ago he was transferring. And
Yeah.
he's no longer with the team.
Ricky, I was hearing, I heard reports from the stands that you made an appearance on. Well, I guess it wasn't from the stands because this was after the game, but I heard reports that you made an appearance on 2 Deep with Pete B.
I did. That was not planned, by the way.
And speaking of reports, the reports are I listened to it, and I heard a comment made by Brian Siegler of Boundary Corner, or maybe it was Pete, I can't remember, who made a comment that Aiden Green might be one of the best quarterbacks on the roster. I think somebody said that like half jokingly, and I cracked up. And now I'm hearing, because I didn't see a lick of spring game, because none of us did unless you were there. If the quarterback play was that bad, outside of Pop and Drones, big yikes.
So here is my kind of evaluation of it. Clearly, all three of those guys are athletic. Each of them have the ability to make plays with their feet. We saw it with all three of them. Davi looked like he was especially athletic and especially capable of scrambling outside the pocket. But when it came to actually getting through some progressions and getting throws into windows downfield, either they did not have any confidence in what they were seeing on the field, or the receivers had no separation whatsoever. It was kind of hard to determine which of those was which, but the entire passing operation on Saturday looked really rough from start to finish, and it gave me some pause and some concern about this room in the future. None of us really know what this coaching staff's going to look like in a couple years anyway. But if we're just evaluating this room moving forward, I do have some real concerns about some of the arm talent that's in this room, and maybe we'll be proven wrong. And these guys just need some time in a college practice schedule, and they need time in a weight room, and they need time to be more confident in their reads, and they need some receivers to play better. But based on what we saw on Saturday, I just did not see a lot that was exciting.
The idea, and perhaps you're right, Ricky, and perhaps some of these guys who are in the room will, end up being something one day. But the idea of anticipating anyone on this roster at the quarterback position, not named Kyron Drones or maybe Pop Watson, projecting out to be a Virginia Tech starting quarterback at one point, other than barring injury, which is, I guess, something you do have to worry about, especially now. Quarterback of the future, I'd give 50-50 odds at best that Pop is the quarterback of the future. And that's the guy that you have in the room and you're paying to stay here. So they're withholding information for a reason, I suppose.
If you're not, especially nowadays, if you're not on the 2 deep on a college football roster, like short of injury, you may as well be playing for another school, because like you're probably going to be in the portal after the year anyway. You know what I mean? Like I don't spend nearly as much time knowing the guys further down the roster as I used to. Not just at Virginia Tech, but like anywhere else, because short of injury, like these guys don't play, right? And then they're probably hitting the portal and going somewhere else anyway in this new era of college football. So like Belfort transferring is not a surprise to me at all. When he committed to Virginia Tech, I was like, okay, this kid's like a little athletic, but like just looking at who Virginia Tech had on the roster and kind of what the next couple of years of quarterback was looking like, I was like, all right, this kid's never going to play here unless like something catastrophic happens at quarterback. And like, think about how hurt Drones was last year. And like Pop was like clearly the number 2, like very clearly the number 2 guy. And Virginia Tech, I think, was even afraid to play Pop a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, think about how hurt Drones had to be for Pop to get in the game. Like, multiple injuries for Drones.
Same with Colin Schlee. Like, it seemed like there was a pretty clear delineation between Drones, Schlee, and Watson and Davi.
Mm-hmm. Like, Davi's buried on the roster, right? Like, buried on the depth chart. And, like, still is, right? Schlee's out of the picture now. It's pretty clear it's Drones and Pop, but I mean, it had to be catastrophic for Pop to even get snaps. Like both Drones had to be really, really hurt. Schlee had to be really, really hurt for them to get to Pop, and then Pop played well against UVA, and then we were all at the Minnesota game and the bowl game. We cannot count that for evaluation for basically anybody. Like offensive line, especially on the offense, like offensive line was so bad, and a lot of those guys were barely on the two deep playing in that game, right? So different situation, but yeah, that wasn't a surprise to me that Davi Belfort transferred. To be honest, I'm surprised more guys haven't hit the portal yet. It's been like oddly quiet, and it sounds like Virginia Tech is pretty active in the transfer market in terms of at least guys who are out there who are saying they've heard from Virginia Tech. I've seen a lot of those tweets the last few days from like people in recruiting saying, "Oh, this guy, former so and so lineman has played this amount of games somewhere. He's heard from Virginia Tech." Okay, like I'm surprised more guys haven't hit the portal yet for Tech, and like the portal's open again, and it's been quiet for the most part. A couple guys here and there. I saw one of the McDonald twins is out.
I think they're both gone, actually.
They're both gone? Okay, so they're both out. Belfort. Like, who else? Like, it's been pretty quiet overall.
I think Webb Davidson and Caleb Nitta. And but yeah, I know you're absolutely right. And Andy Bitter with Tech Sideline wrote an interesting column about how this spring window could be especially active considering the house settlement is on the horizon potentially, and everyone's trying to prepare for that. And this may be the final transfer window before that settlement goes into effect. So a lot of players and a lot of programs are scrambling to try and, I guess, get their last few deals in before the entire rev share cap takes place and goes into effect, and how that's going to impact things. I don't think a lot of people really know just yet, but I guess the window is still open for a few days, and we'll have to see how things shake out. You know that players on Virginia Tech's roster are probably fielding text messages and phone calls that they're not supposed to be receiving, but they're getting them anyway. And
get ready to learn Randolph Macon, buddy. Get ready to learn Carnegie Mellon, buddy.
Don't be surprised if there's a player that is supposed to factor into Virginia Tech's two deep next year that ends up getting serious interest elsewhere. I mean, it's just the name of the game nowadays, and you can't be surprised when that stuff happens anymore.
Especially on the offensive line too, right? Like I'm thinking position groups that are in transition, guys that I think fans are expecting to factor into the two deep that maybe are a little bit further behind than maybe some fans think they are. And this is the issue, right? Where you don't, you look at a roster and you're like, they were on the two deep last year, so they must be next in line to start this year. But then Virginia Tech turns over a position coach there on this is just an example, right? I don't know anything. This is just an example. They turn over a position coach on the offensive line. They turn over the roster on the offensive line. Now, all of a sudden, a guy who you think was supposed to be on the two deep, maybe in line to start, might not be in position with the new position coach to start, right? There might be guys who were recruited that are better than that player. So that's just an example of maybe a guy fans think could be factoring in that may not be.
Example, right? I mean, Caleb Nitta was in the two deep at center.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Altuner comes in. He starts at center on Saturday in the spring game.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Tommy Ricard is going to be his backup, it looks like. So Caleb Nitta looked at the offensive line and said, well, I don't fit here. So at least not in the likely playing area. So
and Ricard started on the offensive line too on Saturday, correct?
He didn't start, I don't think. But I think he played.
Yeah.
Because Altuner started at center. Cunningham was at right guard. Left guard. I know Remack was at right tackle. Garrett was at left tackle. Trying to remember who was at left guard.
Point being, like...
Oh, Ganem.
Ganem. Yeah, of course. So, I mean, point being that the writing was on the wall a little bit for Nitta, right? So he hits the portal. I was expecting more of that. And maybe it's just a little early. Like, portal just reopened. Maybe that's some of it. But yeah, I don't know. And I think Virginia Tech should be in a position where they want to. I know they're high on the young guys, but like, I think Pry's in a position where you can't like wait for some of these guys to develop. Like, it's time to go. Like, we got to go, right? It's like time to, especially with how last season went. Like, it's time to really start making progress, even if the roster isn't quite where you want it. So I feel like you almost got to like take some shots at some guys in the portal, take some swings.
I mean, it's not Ohio State. Taking some swings is going to be necessary, right? I mean, we haven't even gotten to previewing the season yet, which is going to be something of a challenge. But the plan of success, if you think that this is going to go well, is going to require that they took some swings and they worked out. And the best argument they can make for having some success is that Pry has been a moderate to decent evaluator of lower level talent in the past, and that the other schools in the ACC are doing the same thing for the most part. If I'm not, I think I'm right there.
The other thing that stood out to me, guys, about on Saturday was Virginia Tech has, and I may regret saying this in a few months, Virginia Tech has too many running backs that can play. Like, I think they're going to have a real problem trying to split up the carries here, given the amount of talent that they've brought in. We saw Braden Bennett get a fair amount of carries in this game. Looked very good. I thought Hawkins looked fine. Tyler Mason looked fine. Terrion Stewart, who is the likely starter for this team, isn't even here yet. And the running back room still looked pretty good. Jeremiah Coney didn't get to play. He's been nursing an injury. So realistically, you've got 5 contributors at running back that are all going to be fighting for carries. I don't know how the hell this rotation's going to shake out, but they've got a lot of options.
A lot of guys could be hitting the portal.
Well, that's something to think about, right? If you're Jeremiah Coney, you're injured, but ahead of you is 2 graduate transfers and someone who I think is in his last year or maybe has one more year, who is Marcellus Hawkins. So
he's in a tough spot. He's in a tough spot because like you can't even really put yourself out there in the portal because you're hurt. That's tough.
But the other part of it too is if you're patient, right? You figure Stewart, Bennett, and probably Hawkins are gone.
Yes.
After the year, so
it's wide open. Yeah.
After this season, there is a wide open path to playing, but if you're lacking in the patience category, this may not be the room for you this year.
I wonder too, like some of these guys probably stick around to see if they could get like special teams reps as a returner or something. Like I'm not sure. You know, we'll see if Tucker Holloway's healthy. We know how dangerous he was as a return man when he was, right? But if he's ever healthy again,
he played on Saturday.
Is Virginia Tech comfortable with putting him back there to return kicks / punts, given the injury he's coming back from? I mean, you're just they're gonna do whatever they can to score points. I get it, but do any of these running backs have time?
It seems like Selden is probably going to be the kick returner, right? Given his experience at Tennessee.
I heard he looked good Saturday.
I mean, I thought he was fine. I don't think any of the receivers really stood out to me, to be quite honest.
Could it be because
Chance Wiggins
the quarterbacks were basically throwing with their palms like overhead? Could that be why? Like first time orienting themselves to a football? Could that have been the issue?
I was gonna say Chance Wiggins had an absolutely embarrassing play where he had a catch, dropped it right into the hands of I think it was Dante Lovett, and went back for a pick 6. And I'm like, this is completely emblematic of where this passing attack is right now. They finally were able to complete a pass 5 yards beyond the sticks, and it went the other way. But yeah, I think running back is going to be a position of strength for sure. I just don't know how those snaps are going to get divided up. I think that they've got a lot of work and a lot of time to figure that out, especially with Terry and Stewart coming in.
I mean, at the end of the day, right? If you're Virginia Tech and you talk about there being, I don't know if anyone's calling it spoils the riches, but it's certainly a spoils of
Definitely
the
not.
options.
Not calling it that. Yeah, definitely not calling it that.
And coming off of a season where you had we'll see where he lands in the NFL draft, but certainly an all-conference caliber running back. And you still struggled overall as a team. And no one's blaming that guy for it. That was the strength of your team. And you got to try to fill that. You got to try to get 80% of that guy. And whether you do that with one guy or do that in the aggregate, that's neither here nor there. But you got to attempt something. And that's what Virginia Tech's looking to do here.
The last thing I wanted to bring up about Saturday, and it's very early, and considering the group that they were up against, it's hard to put a ton of emphasis on this point, but I thought the defensive line looked pretty solid. They seemed like they were able to control the run game up the middle on the perimeter. They didn't do a great job containing the quarterback scramble, but they were able to force a fair amount of pressure on the quarterbacks in this one. This was a position group that Virginia Tech hit heavily in the portal. I don't even think Ben Bell played in this game. I think he was nursing an injury. So they didn't really even have their full complement of guys. And it looked like that they were able to kind of control the game up front. And time will tell if this unit is good enough to be able to do that in the ACC. Kelvin Gilliam, I mean, we've seen flashes of what he can do. Kamari Copeland's coming back. We've heard about what he can do, but ultimately, I think that this group has the depth has the talent up front and the depth behind it to be able to at least hold their own in this conference. And considering where this unit was just a couple months ago before the transfer window opened, I think that that's certainly an encouraging sign.
Especially considered who they're losing there, right?
Yeah.
APR, the experience of Fuga. I mean, Fuga played well last year. That's encouraging. I think that's one of the biggest questions of the team is what it's going to look like in the trenches on both sides of the ball. So that's encouraging to hear.
Yeah, I mean, not a weak point, and it's a position that you thought was going to be a weak point. So if that can be a plus position group for you, I wouldn't have bet on that in early December. And that's something that in terms of a pass rush, you're going to need. But again, a decent spring game performance against a choppy offensive line, who knows what you're actually seeing out there. So
Yeah.
I'll wait. You have two SEC tests, week 1 and week 2, that'll give you a moderate sense of an idea of what it's going to look like the rest of the way.
Yeah, one thing I will say to kind of put a bow on this, I do like James Jeanette and Derek Dandy. I have a feeling that if Virginia Tech can retain those guys for the remainder of their careers, I think that they can grow into reliable contributors. I think both of them have the athleticism off the edge to make an impact. Mike, you referenced my appearance on Two Deep after the game at the Maroon Door, which first time going there was an interesting experience. One of the things that yeah, for sure. One of the things I was asked, and I hope I'm paraphrasing the question properly, based on how we felt after the Minnesota game, where and we knew all that Virginia Tech was losing, and we compare that to how we're feeling now that spring practice is over. We know by and large what the roster looks like. There may be a couple changes this spring. We'll see. In the summer, we'll see. Are we feeling better or worse?
You have to feel worse. No.
My answer was I feel the same. I don't think that I don't think the roster has gotten better. I think they've done a fair job of trying to replace some of the contributors that they had last season. But ultimately, I haven't seen anything that's made me seriously change my prognosis of this roster. That it's nothing more than a 6 to 7 win team, really at its ceiling.
Yeah, I was listening to that the other night while I was doing some work, and first of all, go listen to podcasts. I appreciate Pete a lot, and Pete does a lot for pod. I mean, he's really invested in the podcast. I mean, grinding at Maroon Door after spring game when it was 35
and the
degrees.
fact
Like,
that he was
buddy,
able
hats off.
to rein in all of us for that was quite the accomplishment.
It was good. Yeah, it was good. I thought it was considering everybody had been like drinking and everything else, like, hats off. It was really, I thought the podcast was good, and I thought that question was really good. And to answer it, like, I thought you gave a good answer, Ricky, on that podcast. I thought it was a very fair answer. And I am with you. I mean, I wasn't at spring game, right? I didn't see it. I'm learning more tonight about the spring game than I've learned this week because, you read what you can on it, but this is
that and
the
it was
most
blacked
information I've
out,
gotten. Right. You're right. Exactly. It's like, I don't want to compare this to like trying to get television in like Russia or China, but that's kind of what it was like. So this is all new to me from somebody boots on the ground. So thank you for that. I think you feel about the same because there were so many players on Saturday that didn't play or couldn't play, right? Terrion Stewart, who I famously called Terrion Arnold on a prior podcast, didn't play. Virginia Tech, neither one of Virginia Tech's two starting quarterbacks or two top quarterbacks on the two deep, their starter, Kyron Drones, another guy who has started out of necessity, Pop Watson, didn't play. Jeremiah Coney, who could factor in at running back this year, didn't play. There are a lot of guys on the roster who didn't play, couldn't play, what have you. And also, this was not the typical Virginia Tech spring game. And, Tech could have been holding some stuff back. We've already floated a theory on this podcast about Shane Beamer and his contacts still in and around Blacksburg, which is hilarious. So we don't know if anything that, I won't say that we saw because I wasn't there. Anything that you saw on Saturday, Ricky, is something that we should be expecting in the fall. We have no idea. I'm very interested to hear about media access at fall camp, given who the week 1 opponent is. Now that we got that theory out there, I cannot wait to see what that looks like. I'm chomping at the bit to get through summer and learn a little bit more about that. That'll be a really interesting case study.
Something I will say, I've been to many spring games in Blacksburg under 3 different coaching staffs, right? Not once have I seen a wide receiver pass. I can't help believe that was intentionally included for a specific reason for some folks that may or may not have been watching the game. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Man, maybe Shane was in the stands. A little Connor Stallions action. Give him a stash, some sunglasses. Blue hat.
Hey, look, it's Sean Beamer.
I'm tired, but
Sean Beamer.
I got a question for you, Mike. We know you're an NBA guy, Boston Celtics enthusiast.
I am. We're about to run it back. Can't wait.
But for you, when you see Toby Lawal entering the NBA draft, right? If you're Cooper Flagg, do you say, like, I'm going to go back to Duke and hold out so I can definitely be the number 1 pick next year? Or what do you do there?
I will not throw any slander at Toby Lawal. One of the few bright spots.
I think, in my mind, he is good enough to be in the NBA. But I've been wrong before. I thought Justin Robinson was like the next Isaiah Thomas. You could pick which Isaiah Thomas. Either way, it would be acceptable.
One of the few preposterous statement. One of the few bright spots of Virginia Tech's men's basketball team was Toby Lawal. I refuse to slander him on this here podcast that I am 1/3 of. But what I will say is that Cooper Flagg certainly has nothing to worry about with Toby Lawal entering the draft. Now, it would shock me. It would shock me if Toby Lawal remained in the draft. That would surprise me. That would be a shocker.
It would.
Anyway.
It would be far more surprising than finding out that Nico Iamaleava was not going to get $4 million in the transfer portal.
He's got. I don't want to tell the kid to get himself some new parents because that's in poor taste. That would be in poor taste. But like, it's pretty clear who's steering the ship here, and it is not Nico, the player. That's pretty clear here. All indications are that Nico had a very good relationship with Josh Heupel. And now we're hearing reports that Nico wants to transfer to UCLA because he wants to play in an offense that better suits him under a first-year offensive coordinator when nobody knows what the offense is truly going to look like. That is epic spin zone from a bunch of people who don't know what they're talking about. And that is what happens when you jump the gun and think you're getting a bag that actually isn't there. The checked-in cash, guys. The checked-in cash for Nico. I'm not talking about Tennessee. I'm talking elsewhere. The check to not cash.
He didn't even get the check to cash. Like he didn't even have a check to try and cash.
Unreal. It wasn't even like the check bounced. It's like you straight up did not get the check written. Yeah. It's insane. Like totally
nobody
insane.
Was offering that.
And the reports that like Tulane was in the mix, total bullshit. Like Tulane doesn't have the money for. I mean, Nico was asking for $3-4 million. He was already making a little over $3 million apparently at Tennessee. Which, first of all, like he did nothing this year. And I think Nico's a fine quarterback. I think he's got a long way to go. He did nothing to warrant a pay raise. Most of his touchdown passes came against Vanderbilt and FCS schools, and he wanted a pay raise after running out of bounds against Arkansas. Do you guys remember that? They were trying to drive down the field to win the game. It was that Saturday night game in like October, and he just like final play of the game. They had like an opportunity to throw it to the end zone. They were on Arkansas side of the 50, and he basically like it's like when your controller glitches and you just like step out of bounds. And we're like, we're giving that guy the pay raise. He like lost you that game.
Somebody on X made a really funny point. I don't think I'm going to be able to find it, but they said something along the lines of like, it's a great idea for Nico Iamaleava to try and find an offense that better suits him. The Tennessee offense was not all that explosive last year. And then the punchline was, it turned out, though, that Tennessee's offense struggled because they had a quarterback who wasn't accurate and didn't know where he was going with the football.
It's pretty funny. It's Richard Johnson for Split Zone Duo. He always talks about Josh Heupel. It's basically like offense go burr. You know, if they got like a quarterback who like has any idea what they're doing, like he doesn't even have to be like the greatest quarterback in the world. Just it's kind of like add water and mix sort of thing with that offense, which, you know, I think adds up given the success that Heupel's had with a number of different quarterbacks.
Kind of like Lincoln.
Very similar.
Kind of.
Very similar.
It's a shame I can't find this tweet. This was absolute gold. Regardless, Tulane, I mean, they literally lost Mensa to Duke because they couldn't afford Mensa. So there was no chance they were going to be able to afford Nico. Regardless, though, I do think it's an interesting case study in this was really the first example that I can think of where a player, for all intents and purposes, held out of spring practice for more money.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that we've seen that yet at the college level.
Josh Pate said that not only Nico, but there were some other players who were on playoff teams that were discussing holding out of the playoff games for more money. Wow. And he's pretty tied in, and that would not surprise me given the state of college. Like that would not surprise me at all. It's unfortunate we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, I mean, Billy Ray, I mean, we can touch on this in an entirely other episode because I'm so tired. But Billy Ray posted a Josh Pate rant, and it's about 20 minutes long, and you can go on Billy's, uh, you know, X account to find it. It was moderately recently, but Josh does the biggest takedown of the current state of college football, and go ahead and listen to it. We can do an entire episode on this, but spoiler alert, everything he said I essentially agree with. So do yourself a favor and go listen to that 20 minutes somewhere on YouTube. Hopefully you're already on YouTube and you've hit subscribe and you've asked for notifications, and so you're like right there on the platform. You can just type in like Josh Pate rant. I don't know.
Do we, the last question, and we can start to wrap this up. Do we think that Josh Heupel made the right call?
Absolutely. You have to draw the line. You have to. Well, I guess we're going to find out this fall. I guess is the real answer.
Yeah,
but truthfully,
as of right now, but without knowing how this works out.
In the moment, absolutely, because you have to draw a line. It's easy for me to say too, I guess, like not running a program, not knowing what every single player on your roster is getting paid, but you have to draw the line somewhere, right? Like at some point you got to be like, all right, this guy, what did he do to deserve this money? Absolutely nothing. Oh, and his parents and agent are insane. Like nobody is bigger. I think that the saying coming out of Tennessee, it was either Heupel or somebody else said like nobody's bigger than the Power T, which is like their logo, right? Like nobody's bigger than this program. Like and Heupel's whole thing, which I thought was really good, was like this program was here before me and before this team, like this current roster, and it'll be here long after we're gone. And like ultimately it's our responsibility to make sure that the players who want to suit up in orange and white actually want to be here, which I think is really important, right? And I think where Nico really screwed this up is when he didn't show up to practice. Like, if you're just essentially no-showing and the coaches are calling and you're not responding and you're already in the middle of a contract dispute, which sounds like was the issue, like he had been building this, that's it, right? Like they cut that off as soon as he no-showed practice and didn't respond to their texts or calls. He is supposed to be the leader of that team. You are the quarterback. You are the starting quarterback. You're the leader of the offense. And that's not a way, right, to show leadership. Now, Nico doesn't care. He's trying to get paid. And now he's gone. I think Heupel absolutely made the right decision. Now, will it lead to more losses than maybe he was hoping for this fall? I mean, potentially. I think the portal window, we'll see. They got, I know, a 5-star coming in next year that isn't going to be available on this year's roster. They do have some highly touted quarterbacks, but not nearly as highly touted as I guess this one particular kid is. I forget his name right now. I don't know if they're going to be able to get anybody in the portal that is better than Nico Iamaleava, but it's probably going to be an existing quarterback. Heupel's got a history, though, guys. He's got a history of kind of figuring this stuff out. I wouldn't put it past him to just get it done with who's on the roster this year, go like 9-3, bring in your 5-star next year.
Faison Brandon.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Yeah.
The gentleman, which the only reason I know that is because I looked it up, because I don't really follow recruiting all that much, especially in this day and age. Really quick, Tennessee schedule. Georgia at home, at Bama. It's a pretty easy schedule, in all things considered. They play
South
Bama,
Carolina?
Nope.
They miss Shane.
So their SEC schedule is Mississippi State, Arkansas, Bama,
2 wins,
Kentucky, Oklahoma,
3.
Florida, Vanderbilt, and Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, Florida, their toughest games are Florida, Georgia, and Bama.
Yeah.
You miss South Carolina.
You miss LSU.
You miss A&M.
Yep. So I guess we'll see. Tennessee might not know who their starting quarterback will be, but Virginia Tech does, as long as he's healthy.
Did somebody tell Heupel that Davi Belfort's in the portal?
Oh man, pay him what you were paying Nico.
Jesus, no wonder he's transferring.
Yeah, right. All right, it's spring is over, so we'll probably not be recording a ton for the remaining couple months. There are some things that I want to discuss with the boys while we're not recording about the future and some future projects we can work on. Some stuff that we can bring to you guys down the road. We'll check in periodically throughout the off season and kind of see how things are going. Maybe we'll do something post draft and see if any Hokies got drafted. We'll see if Toby Lawal ends up going to the NBA. I think that would require a pod. Any last words, boys?
Ricky, I know you enjoyed Fat Tuesday, so for the recommendation, the very obvious recommendation,
I enjoyed
Key West. You're welcome.
Yeah. So as I was telling Andrew a little bit before we started recording, Andrew paid for me to get the giant Stanley with the drink in it. So I got that. I got the stronger version of the drinks that they were offering. I got about a third of the way done before we had to go on a sandbar cruise that afternoon, which was a blast.
Tough day, Rick.
Yeah, brutal, man. Got back, and because I had put my Stanley in the fridge in our hotel room, the drink was still completely frozen. So I was still able to enjoy my drink. Andrew, there was a great suggestion. Key West is phenomenal, folks. If you haven't been and you're looking for a destination, you should absolutely go. Key West is great. Miami, take it or leave it.
There's Miami, and then there's South Beach.
Even South Beach, I'll take it or leave it. Like, South Beach was better than Miami, I'll give you that. But, I don't know.
Okay.
I will say, for those of you who know that I moonlight as a Duke fan because my dad went there for basketball, and you were rooting for my demise, congratulations, because that was tough.
Yeah,
but San Antonio,
Andrew, did you enjoy the Final Four?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, all things considered, as good of a Final Four from a entertainment perspective as you could possibly imagine. There was no minute in any of the Final Four games that it was boring. And San Antonio, I've been to the Final Four a few times. Indianapolis twice, been to New Orleans once. The Riverwalk, San Antonio, awesome. Chalk is boring on the way to the Final Four, but when every team in the Final Four is an absolute force, that definitely brings a different dynamic to the table. So, yeah, nothing to complain about. And if you're anything like me in terms of your hobbies and interests, which I assume a lot of people listening to this podcast probably are very similar to me in terms of what you like to do and how you like to spend your time. Even if, the only college basketball team you like is Virginia Tech, who, God willing, will make it to the Final Four in my lifetime, but we're not holding our breath. Just go one time when it's in a cool city. Enjoy it. It's a very cool thing when you walk around, everyone's partying, and you got hundreds of thousands of people, or not hundreds, but tens of thousands of people, hundreds and thousands in total, all there thinking that they're going to walk away with the national championship, and 3/4 of them leave disappointed.
Didn't someone share like a AI model predicted a national championship for Virginia Tech in like 2070 or something like that?
Yes, I did see that. 2072 it was, Rick, which
seems optimistic.
Hopefully I'm around then.
Yeah. I would. I could die a happy man at that point.
2072, I would be turning 80 years old.
So I'd be still in my 70s. I'd be all right.
Okay, nice.
I'd be younger than the president. And the last one, too.
And on that note, make sure you rate, review, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, make sure you're tapping the bell so you get the notifications. Leave reviews on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever audio platform you're using to listen. Follow the boys on X, at Mike McDaniel SI, at Ricky the Blue, at Andrew Alex Radio. We'll be back at some point. It is the off season. Enjoy it. Go play some golf. I'm certainly looking forward to doing so. Until then, go Hokies.